Bob Olinger laughed at noon. By sunset, his own shotgun had killed him. Billy the Kid was 21 years old, chained to a wall on the second floor of the Lincoln County Courthouse, scheduled to hang in 14 days. 2 armed deputies watched him around the clock. The building had never been escaped from. The whole town knew Billy was finished. Bob Olinger made sure Billy knew it too. Olinger was 32, a deputy with 8 years of law enforcement experience. He'd killed 3 men in gunfights and walked away every time. He carried a double-barrel shotgun loaded with 18 buckshot pellets in each barrel, enough firepower to cut a man in half. He'd shown Billy the gun multiple times, described exactly what those 36 pellets would do to a human body, promised he'd use it if Billy tried anything stupid. The other guard was James Bell, 34, a decent man who'd known Billy for years. Bell had arrested Billy without violence, treated him with respect, even played cards with him during the long days of waiting for the hanging. But Bell was also a professional. He never forgot Billy had killed 4 men and would kill again if given the chance. The setup was simple and brutal. Billy stayed shackled at the wrists and ankles, even while sleeping. One guard stayed with him at all times while the other rested or ate. They worked in shifts, never both absent, never both asleep. The leg irons made running impossible. Billy could barely walk, had to shuffle step by step whenever he moved. The courthouse was 2 stories, all wood construction, with the jail on the second floor and county offices below. One staircase led down. Olinger had personally checked every window, every board, every possible weakness. There was no way out except through the front door, and that meant going through both guards. Billy had 14 days until they put a rope around his neck and dropped him through a trapdoor. The town of Lincoln, New Mexico Territory, was already building the gallows in the courthouse yard. People came by to watch the construction, to see where Billy the Kid would die. Some felt sorry for him. He was young, had been kind to many locals, had killed men who needed killing. Others wanted him dead. He was an outlaw, a murderer, a man who'd chosen violence over law. The territorial governor wanted him hanged as an example. The cattle barons wanted him dead to close a chapter of the Lincoln County War. Sheriff Pat Garrett, who'd captured Billy 3 months earlier, wanted the execution done before anyone tried to break Billy out. On April 28, 1881, Bob Olinger took 5 prisoners across the street for their daily meal at the hotel. This was routine. The courthouse had no kitchen, so prisoners ate at the Wortley Hotel under guard, while one deputy stayed behind with Billy. James Bell drew the short straw. He'd be alone with Billy for maybe 30 minutes while Olinger supervised the meal. Billy asked Bell if he could use the outhouse. It was in the backyard, down the stairs, across the courtyard. Bell agreed. He'd taken Billy to the outhouse dozens of times over the past 3 months. Billy always cooperated, never caused trouble, seemed resigned to his fate. Bell didn't think twice about it. They started down the stairs, Billy in front, shuffling in his leg irons. Bell 3 steps behind, hand near his revolver but not touching it. This was the moment Billy had been waiting for. 3 months of patience, of being the model prisoner, of letting Bell relax just enough. At the bottom of the stairs, Billy made his move. What happened next took 6 seconds. Billy spun faster than the leg irons should have allowed, grabbed Bell's revolver from its holster, and stepped back. Bell went for the gun, but his hand found empty leather. Billy fired once. The bullet hit Bell in the back as he turned to run. Bell staggered, made it 3 more steps, collapsed at the bottom of the stairs. Billy stood over him, still holding the smoking revolver. Bell looked up at him, tried to speak. Billy didn't shoot again. He turned and shuffled back up the stairs as fast as the leg irons would let him move. Behind him, James Bell died on the courthouse floor, blood spreading across the wood planks. Upstairs, Billy had maybe 2 minutes before someone came to investigate the gunshot. The courthouse was in the middle of town. People had definitely heard the shot, were probably already coming to see what happened. Billy needed weapons, needed to get these chains off, needed to move fast. He shuffled to the guard's office. Olinger's shotgun stood in the corner. The same gun Olinger had showed him, threatened him with, promised would kill him if he tried to escape. Billy grabbed it, checked the loads. Both barrels fully loaded with buckshot. 36 pellets ready to fly. Then Billy heard boots on the stairs. Someone was coming up. He positioned himself at the window overlooking Main Street, the shotgun heavy in his chained hands. Bob Olinger came out of the hotel when he heard the gunshot. He looked toward the courthouse, saw nothing unusual, but something felt wrong. The other prisoners with him stayed put. They knew better than to move when Olinger had that look on his face. Olinger started across the street toward the courthouse, walking fast but not running. His hand moved to his revolver. "Bob." Olinger looked up. Billy the Kid stood at the second-floor window, pointing Olinger's own shotgun down at him. The street between them was maybe 20 feet wide. Point-blank range for a shotgun loaded with buckshot. Olinger froze. His hand was on his revolver, but he didn't draw. Drawing would take 1 second, and Billy only needed to pull 2 triggers. Olinger had shown Billy exactly what this gun could do. Now he was looking down both barrels. "Hello, Bob." Billy pulled the first trigger. The blast hit Olinger in the chest and shoulder. 18 buckshot pellets traveling at 200 feet per second. Olinger went backwards, hit the ground hard, tried to get up. Billy pulled the second trigger. 18 more pellets, same target, same result. Olinger stopped moving. The whole town heard the shotgun blast. People came running, then stopped when they saw Bob Olinger's body in the street and Billy the Kid in the window, still holding the smoking shotgun. Nobody moved toward the courthouse. Nobody tried to be a hero. They just watched. Billy broke the shotgun over the windowsill, threw the pieces into the street. "You won't follow me with that again," he called down to Olinger's body. Then he disappeared from the window. Inside the courthouse, Billy went back to work. He found keys on Bell's body, unlocked his wrist chains. The leg irons were trickier. The key wasn't with Bell's things, and Billy didn't have time to search the whole building. He grabbed a pickaxe from the tool closet, sat down, and started breaking the chain between his ankle cuffs. It took him 15 minutes of hammering before the chain snapped. He could walk now, even run if he needed to. He collected weapons: Bell's revolver, Olinger's rifle from the office, ammunition for both. He found his own gun belt hanging on a hook. The guns were gone, but the belt fit and had loops for ammunition. He loaded up, checked the loads twice, made sure everything worked. Then Billy walked to the front door and opened it. Main Street was full of people standing at a distance, watching the courthouse, waiting to see what happened next. Billy stepped out onto the porch, fully armed, fully free, with 2 dead lawmen behind him. "I don't want to kill anyone else today," Billy announced to the crowd. "I need a horse. Anyone who wants to lend me one can leave it in front of the courthouse. Anyone who tries to stop me will regret it." Nobody moved. Billy stood on the porch for another 5 minutes while people whispered and pointed and stayed exactly where they were. Finally, a man named Billy Burt walked forward leading a horse. Burt had known Billy for years, didn't believe Billy deserved to hang for killing men who'd tried to kill him first. "I'll need that back," Burt said quietly. "You'll get it back," Billy promised. 2 days at the crossroads. Billy mounted up, adjusted the guns on his belt, looked around at the crowd one last time. His eyes stopped on the unfinished gallows in the courthouse yard, the structure they'd been building to hang him. "Guess you won't be needing that anymore," he called out. Then Billy the Kid rode out of Lincoln, New Mexico, heading west toward the mountains. Behind him, 2 men lay dead, and an entire town stood frozen, unable to believe what they'd just witnessed. The whole escape, from grabbing Bell's gun to riding out of town, had taken 47 minutes. The news spread fast. By nightfall, every saloon and ranch house within 50 miles knew Billy the Kid had escaped from the Lincoln County Courthouse, killed both guards, and walked out the front door in broad daylight. By the next morning, newspapers across the territory were printing the story. By the end of the week, people in Texas, Colorado, and California were reading about the most audacious prison break in Old West history. Sheriff Pat Garrett received a telegram at his ranch 3 hours after the escape. He read it twice, crumpled it in his fist, and started gathering men for a posse. Garrett had spent 3 months tracking Billy down, had captured him without bloodshed, had thought the Billy problem was finally solved. Now Billy was free again, armed again, and had just proven he'd killed to stay that way. The territorial governor offered a $500 reward for Billy the Kid, dead or alive. This was serious money, enough to buy a small ranch or live comfortably for 2 years. Bounty hunters from 3 territories started heading toward New Mexico. Every lawman, every gunfighter, every man who needed money badly enough to risk getting killed by the fastest gun in the West started looking for Billy. Billy kept moving. He returned Bert's horse at the crossroads as promised, then disappeared into the Capitan Mountains. He knew the territory better than anyone. Every canyon, every water source, every ranch where he could find friends, or at least people who wouldn't turn him in. He knew Garrett would come after him, knew bounty hunters would be looking, knew he couldn't stay in one place long. For 2.5 months, Billy stayed free. He moved at night, hid during the day, trusted only a few close friends. He stole food when he had to, accepted help when it was offered, avoided confrontation whenever possible. Some people helped him because they liked him. Others helped because they were more afraid of Billy than they were of the law. A few helped because they hated the Santa Fe Ring, the political and business alliance that controlled New Mexico territory, and wanted Billy dead. Pat Garrett never stopped hunting. He followed every lead, questioned every contact, slowly narrowed down the places Billy might be hiding. Garrett had one advantage. He'd been Billy's friend before becoming his hunter. He knew how Billy thought, knew who Billy trusted, knew where Billy would go when he ran out of options. On July 14, 1881, Garrett and 2 deputies rode to Fort Sumner, a small town on the Pecos River. Garrett had information that Billy was staying with friends there, visiting in secret, sleeping in different houses every few nights. It was risky for Billy. Fort Sumner was too close to civilization, too many people who might talk. But Billy had a girl there, had friends there, couldn't stay in the mountains forever. That night, Garrett waited in the bedroom of Pete Maxwell, a wealthy rancher whose house was a central meeting point in Fort Sumner. Garrett sat in the dark, gun drawn, waiting for information on Billy's whereabouts. His deputies waited outside. Around midnight, someone walked into Maxwell's bedroom. The figure moved quietly, didn't knock, came straight to the bed where Garrett sat in darkness. The man leaned close to Maxwell and whispered in Spanish. "Who are those men outside?" Garrett recognized the voice. Billy the Kid, standing 3 feet away in the dark, unarmed, not expecting anyone except Maxwell to be in the room. Garrett raised his revolver and fired twice. The first shot hit Billy in the chest, just above the heart. The second shot missed. Billy stumbled backward, fell to the floor, tried to speak. No words came out. Pat Garrett stood up, stepped over Billy's body, called for his deputies to bring a light. When the lamp arrived, they confirmed what Garrett already knew. Billy the Kid was dead at 21 years old, killed by the man who'd once been his friend, in a dark bedroom where Billy never saw what was coming. The whole sequence, from walking into the room to dying on the floor, took less than 5 seconds. Billy had survived gunfights, prison, a hanging sentence, and the biggest manhunt in territorial history. But he didn't survive a bullet fired by someone he'd trusted in a moment when he'd let his guard down. Fort Sumner buried Billy the Kid the next day in the old military cemetery. No trial, no ceremony, no official marker, just a grave in the ground, and a name people would argue about for the next 140 years. Some said Garrett murdered Billy in cold blood. Others said Billy was a killer who got what he deserved. A few claimed Billy survived and Garrett killed someone else, that the real Billy lived to old age under a different name. The Lincoln County Courthouse still stands today in Lincoln, New Mexico. You can visit the building, walk up the same stairs Billy went down when he grabbed Bell's gun, stand in the window where Billy shot Olinger with his own shotgun. The bullet holes are still in the wood. The building is a museum now, dedicated to preserving the history of the Lincoln County War and its most famous outlaw. Bob Olinger's shotgun is in a museum in Santa Fe. They found it in the street where Billy threw it, broken and empty. James Bell has a gravestone in the Lincoln Cemetery. His family maintained it for 3 generations before the state took over preservation. Pat Garrett's revolver, the one that killed Billy, sold at auction in 2019 for $6 million. Here's what makes Billy's escape impossible. He was chained, guarded by 2 armed men, in a building that had never been breached. He had 14 days until execution, and the whole town watching. He made one move, grabbing Bell's gun, and 47 minutes later, he was riding out of town free. 2 guards were dead and nobody in Lincoln tried to stop him. The historical record is clear. Court documents confirm Billy was scheduled to hang on May 13, 1881. Witness testimony describes the escape exactly as it happened. Death certificates for Bell and Olinger list cause of death as gunshot wounds inflicted by Billy the Kid. Newspaper accounts from April 29, 1881, describe the escape in detail, naming witnesses, quoting survivors. This happened. A 21-year-old outlaw, chained and guarded in a second-floor jail cell, killed both his guards with their own weapons and walked out the front door of the courthouse while the entire town watched. He stayed free for another 77 days before the man who'd once been his friend shot him in the dark. The impossible part isn't that Billy escaped, it's that he almost got away with it. If Billy had stayed in the mountains instead of going to Fort Sumner, if he'd been more careful about who he trusted, if he'd never walked into Pete Maxwell's bedroom that night, he might have disappeared into Mexico, might have started over somewhere else, might have lived to old age telling stories about the day he walked out of the Lincoln County Courthouse. Instead, Billy the Kid died at 21, killed by Pat Garrett at close range, buried in an unmarked grave that people still argue about. The boy who couldn't stay out of trouble, who made enemies of the most powerful men in New Mexico, who killed 8 men before his 22nd birthday, who escaped from the most secure jail in the territory, only to walk unarmed into a dark room where his former friend waited with a loaded gun. You can visit Lincoln, New Mexico today. Stand in that second-floor window. Look down at Main Street where Olinger died. Try to imagine being 21 years old, scheduled to hang in 2 weeks, making a split-second decision to grab a gun and fight your way out. Try to imagine succeeding. Then ask yourself, what would you do with 47 minutes of impossible freedom before the whole world came looking for you?